Welcome to another episode of Voices in Health and Wellness. This is the show where we sit down with the practitioners, founders, and health leaders who are redefining what it means to thrive in this industry, both personally and professionally. Today, I'm excited to bring to you a conversation that goes straight to the heart of one of the most pressing issues in our field, why even the smartest, most driven health practitioners struggle with work-life balance. And to help us unpack this, I'm joined by someone whose voice carries real depth and experience, Ben Fleisher. Ben is a licensed acupuncturist, a certified zero balancer, and the founder of Woodstock Healing Arts, a multidisciplinary healing center in upstate New York, known for combining clinical integrity with soulful, community-centered care. With over 20 years in practice, Ben's seen and personally navigated the full spectrum of practitioner burnout, boundary setting, and the emotional weight that comes with holding space for others day in and day out. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Ben. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So perhaps we could start at the top. Would you perhaps give us a little bit of background into your journey and how that has led you to form the Woodstock Healing Arts?
Okay, great. Well, let's see. This story kind of begins with me in terms of my involvement with this work. It started when I was pretty young. Like when I was a teenager, I got interested in Buddhism and meditation and yoga, just trying to understand what these concepts really were, especially Buddhism, the idea of action and non-action, and understanding kind of yin and yang from that perspective. That hit me pretty young. And so when I finished, I went to school and I studied psychology and religion to try to understand how these things all fit together, and worked on a developmental model that was like birth to death as opposed to kind of birth to 10 in the West, or over many lifetimes in the East. So tried to look at how those things could be integrated. But I finished school at 21 and was like, well, I'm not going to be a monk, and I'm not going to be a therapist because I'm 21. So what should I do? So I went back to school for massage therapy, practiced that for a few years. I lived in Colorado at the time. And it was in the wake of my brother's death. My brother passed away at a young age. He was 31. I was 25. And in the wake of that, I was like, okay, I've lived enough. That's a major tragedy that most people don't experience. And I think I can handle what other people have to say. And I kind of left that experience feeling more emboldened to create a bigger container for my clients. So that's kind of how I got to the work originally. And then 10 years into practice, something like that. Not even 5 years into practice, it was. Yeah, 5 years into practice in New York City. And my partner and I, she got pregnant, and we decided to move to the country and back to the town where I grew up. And I discovered it's not that easy to move a practice from New York City up to the country. You're starting over. And so in doing so, I took from all the various places I'd worked in the city, I brought all that knowledge back here to create this. It's like an integrative wellness center here. So a whole host of mind-body disciplines, and we all work under one roof or kind of under one umbrella, and try to bring together all the healers in this region to kind of like help them be more findable. And it's worked out really well. We're in our 9th year. We're just hitting the 9-year mark, and thinking about expansion, and it's going well. And
brilliant.
So, yeah.
Well, congratulations on creating such an amazing space. And perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the kind of people that are coming through the space and how the healers interact with each other to kind of provide the different elements to a patient's treatment plan.
Yeah, I mean, we really see the gamut here. We have a few chiropractors we work with, and massage therapists, and myself, a few other acupuncturists, and I do zero balancing. So the modalities all fit well in complement with each other. So we often we see everything, to go back to that, like, because you asked that question first, from, teenagers with high anxiety to large aging population, a more geriatric care, if you will, just like helping people navigate, the last 10, 20 years of their life, which is often like a lot of dealing with medical stuff. And at least my role is largely to do with like helping them navigate it, not so much replacing or, anything like that. It's like just understanding how these things all fit together, and helping them avoid some of the common Western medical pitfalls of, all the conditions that they don't really have great strategies for actually treating, maybe managing symptoms, but not really treating from the inside out. So we kind of fill in with a lot of that. And we all try to interface as much as we can. We have with shared clients, we, have all of our confidentiality and HIPAA stuff in place. And yet, clients for the most part would prefer to have their health professionals discussing their case. Most people have discovered they get better care that way. So it works out pretty well.
Brilliant. So your role, obviously you're still practicing, what your modalities are, but what do the other things that you do in your work? How does your kind of day pan out in terms of all the other responsibilities that you have in running Woodstock?
Well, I have an office manager here, so like I don't have to do a lot of the admin logistics. I mean, I have some degree of that, maybe in like less than an hour a day. It's pretty much to a minimum because I've passed it all. I delegate it all at this point, as much as possible. So I'm in the treatment room most of the day, and I do because my work is like a combination of like deeply relaxing, very profoundly still and quiet work with zero balancing, to trigger point acupuncture and clients yelling expletives on the table. It's for me, that's like kind of how I keep it interesting, is that in the treatment room itself I have a variety of modalities that I use, right? So it's some trigger point acupuncture, it might be zero balancing work, it might be nutritional counseling, or test interpretation. Like I do also have a functional medicine. You mentioned urine functional medicine. I did do a 2-year training in that work, so I can at least interpret a lot of what people are working with. So a lot of it is like a medical translation almost for people.
Thank you. I mean, you mentioned zero balancing. Just for the benefit of those who are listening who may not know much about it, can you just give us a very high-level overview of what that involves?
Yeah, happily. It's a type of acupressure. It works with how energy is held in the bones primarily. So you're doing very subtle adjustments to bones and joints. And the effect is quite profound because they're the densest tissue and the strongest structure in the body, and therefore even minor adjustments have really big effects. And it's kind of like it changes it's like the water you're swimming in. It kind of changes how you experience yourself. It's really, really interesting work and really great resource for people. It's nice.
Thank you. You're holding space for others constantly. How do you stay grounded with that in the work that you do?
Yeah, well, the zero balancing training has like very strong emphasis on this, and that work I've been doing for 20 years. So I don't even think about a lot of it now. But in thinking over and talking to people about how they, in general, avoid burning out doing their work, I'm like, oh, these are all the things that we were trained to do. So that's really being grounded and centered in yourself before you start to work with every patient, and taking the moment before you touch them or before you read their pulse, or before you, really engage. There's a kind of 3-step process, actually. I think of it like, first someone's coming in and you're knocking the dust off. How are you doing today? Was it okay getting here? How's things going today? Like, what's most present? That's step number 1. And that leads right into like, okay, is there something deeper under the surface? Like, why are you actually here? And that's step number 2, is like, why are you actually here? And like taking the time to frame the session with clients, so you know very clearly why they're there. And, that takes the guesswork out of that. And then thirdly, taking that moment, really grounding and centering before you start to work with them. So it does miles for me. And then all the other things that help avoid burnout, taking care of myself outside of here, taking a really deep dive into myself and like my own people pleasing and my own fawning and my own desire to help people, and the difference between that and actually showing up in a real, authentic, informed way with patients, and not just kind of doing it out of my ego's needs. So doing that deeper work is a big piece of that. Getting body work outside of here is a big piece of that. Making sure my sleep is good and my general tech hygiene, and I'm not glued to my phone the entire time I'm not here. That's a big piece of that. So there's a lot of little things you can do.
So you clearly do have a very holistic approach to looking after yourself. Have you seen any shifts in how other health practitioners, where it's colleagues or people that in the space, show up to work? Do they have a similar approach to you, or what might they be missing out on?
I think everyone has a similar approach in terms of like, somewhat knowing, I need to keep myself nourished. If I don't take care of number one, how can I take care of anybody else? I think most people have a general sense of that. But I've spent a lot of time now really thinking about how to implement it in my life. So, I don't know, some of the tips are like, balancing your workload. So it's not all the same thing all day, every day. And often, especially with new therapists, you see that they've learned one thing in school, they want to do that one thing all day. And that just doesn't last all that long. You have to find ways to mix up what you're doing, whether that's your manual skills or your, therapeutic strategies with people, or whether it's just a mix of like, I'm going to be also developing the secondary revenue stream, and I'm going to spend 20% of my week thinking about how to do online sales for these products I made, or whatever the thing may be. But finding ways to diversify it so you're not just doing the same thing every day. I think that's really important. Another thing that I think is unique, that I've heard over the years, is a very unique thing that I embody that I don't think is super prevalent, is to just have like basically no space for the idea of competition. I don't believe in competition when it comes to this work. And I think a lot of people really spend a lot of mental energy and waste a lot of mental energy comparing themselves to other practitioners, or, trying to understand if what they're doing is good enough, all that. It's just, I really, really emphasize there's no competition. Everybody needs help in one area or another when it comes to their health. That's an innumerable number of people. There's no shortage of clients. There never will be. And it only really reflects poorly on you as a practitioner when you're too caught up in that. And that's what clients smell. They don't smell that you did all these trainings. They smell that you feel competitive. And no one likes that feeling. So, especially when you're interpreting what an orthopedist thinks, or what a cardiologist thinks, or what a podiatrist thinks about a certain patient, you got to be very careful to really respect each one of them, and find a way to speak what you find to be true within any of their medical feedback. What's the valuable piece of information, and know wherever they get relief is great. It doesn't have to come from you. It doesn't matter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, it's really helpful. I suppose if you're working in the holistic space, and we try to be holistic in the work we do you think there's a pressure to be everything to everyone? And
Exactly.
has that gotten worse, or has it just got louder?
I mean, that's the thing. That's like you're talking your fingers right on the, that's the thing I'm talking about. Like, you don't need to be everything to everyone. That's like one of the biggest pitfalls right there, is trying to be. I mean, I'm a huge proponent of knowing your scope and then referring out and referring out and referring out. Also because it all comes back. Those practitioners send people back to you. You don't really need to think small-minded about that. So yeah, there is always that pressure, but I feel like more and more people sadly realize that they need to be their own best advocate, and therefore no one practitioner or doctor is going to have all the answers. And I think more and more people have woken up to, like, you need to be able to take a stand for your own health, and that's how you interface with doctors, and what finding your trusted practitioners to speak to, and if any one of them thinks that they're the end all be all, they're wrong. Chances are.
What about the people around you? I mean, do you think there are support systems are missing for practitioners generally? I mean, obviously you have take great care of yourself. You're very insightful. You reflect on everything, but I guess not everybody's like that. And what kind of things would be helpful for other practitioners?
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. I think community care is like the key thing to self-care, is like really regularly practicing opening up what is really going on with you with different practitioners for your own, both professionally and personally and health-wise. That's like a huge thing, and really the way to be the best overall practitioner, in my opinion. So like, we are not actively doing it here at our center, but for a while we did more like team building, kind of group supervision stuff, where we would get together and talk about clients and talk about client cases, I should say, and different approaches and strategies, and kind of professional support like that, and kind of peer supervision, which I think is really valuable. But any kind of, the more you can live in community, that's kind of like the end all be all. That's where we're all trying to get comfortable, to have a, nice, healthy window of tolerance of being good and being bad, and being good and being bad, but being in community and not having to be perfect all the time. Again, getting back to that idea of like, that practitioners need to have it all together, and they need to have everything together personally, that they can't be messy in any way personally, all the ways that we try to internalize perfectionism. It just is like not very healthy.
Thank you. So Woodstock Healing Arts is a business, and I'm just interested to know whether there are any particular challenges or bottlenecks you've had to overcome recently to do the work that you do in your centre, or if there's anything that's still left that still bothers you, troubles you, you're working on trying to solve.
We don't have any major hindrances now. Everything's operating pretty smoothly. We're potentially expanding, and part of that, one of the things that we've looked at in the past and we're looking at now, is how to create like a community fund, so that more lower income people can get services. How to set it up legally, like just how to run something like that, and I just haven't cracked that yet, because it's a tricky thing. You have to, some people say it has to be a separate entity that would own that money until it's spent, and there's just some logistics I haven't worked out around that. But that's the community care piece is what I haven't cracked, in terms of our center really being able to support our community. We did like community acupuncture here twice a week for years, but it just was unsustainable. It's a really tricky model after a while, for at least the way we were doing it. So I want to crack more into that, like more of a community fund concept.
Well, all the best with that one. I think it's a very worthwhile thing to be doing. Similarly, on the other side, what are some of the successes, things you're most proud of in your model?
Well, I mean, it feels great to be part of this community. We have about 20 or so practitioners under this umbrella. And 10 years of working together, we have a really strong web here of practitioners that that just in and of itself feels really great. Knowing that people can land with any of us and we'll probably from there end up in the right hands. It's a great feeling. That's a great feeling unto itself. So.
And if you had a sudden influx of new clients next week, obviously a nice problem to have, what would be the first thing that would break? And hopefully none of you or your colleagues.
Well, I don't think we would just run out of space eventually, but I don't think anything would break.
And you talked about expansion. Is that within your current premises, or are you looking to sort of set up other centers or branches? What's the feeling there?
Might open up like another like an annex in the same town here, but just on the other side of town.
Cool. Yeah. And if you had a magic wand and you could fix one thing in Woodstock tomorrow, what would that be, if anything?
Well, if anyone listening knows anything about Woodstock, New York, it would be to fix the housing market. It has this real dearth of affordable housing here. And for a clinic like this, that works out pretty well because we end up getting a population of people who have a lot of money. But in terms of living here, it's not so great. It's very difficult to pay all the bills, and it's very difficult for our community to find real legs. We don't have enough workers, etc., because the people who, unless you're earning a lot of money, it's hard to afford to live here, etc. So there, please wave the wand.
Okay. It's a theoretical wand. I'm afraid I can't solve the problem. And is there anything you would do differently if you were to start your business again tomorrow? You've been in the space for a long time. You've been on a journey. If you could do it all again tomorrow, would you do anything differently?
Not really. Nothing major. I mean, I wish I knew what I know now earlier, but I don't know if there's a shortcut to that. I don't know. It's been such a learning journey here. This center, in the 9 years we've been here, we've had we tried different business models. We've done it 3 different ways, and the way we're doing it now works pretty well, which is like a kind of combination of marketing services and rental services, as opposed to having every practitioner work for the center as a subcontractor. We're trying out this model and it works well. And I say nothing would really change because each thing we've done, even the things that didn't work, nothing was a catastrophe. And it's how we got to what I feel most comfortable with, which is what we're doing now. So, I mean, there must be something I would do differently. Probably it would be something like actually do better self-care earlier on. Really take it seriously from the get-go. I also, thinking back on my history, I think of it like when this place started, but I was already 10, 15 years into my practice at that point. And if I forget, in the beginning, I did all kinds of things that were beyond my capacity. I would take clients too late or on the weekend, or working just weird hours, or too long a session, or not really owning what my sessions were, what I needed to be successful as a therapist, but, catering more to what my clients needed. And that balance was quite askew in the beginning. And honestly, it's like I found zero balancing, which is now almost 20 years ago. And that helped really course correct a lot of that, so that it was more to do with a balanced interface between me and the client, and not me doing everything I could to make them happy. It's like much more, I can hold them with the highest personal regard and treat them exactly for who they are. And I don't need to compromise my integrity. I do wish I got that earlier, but I still feel pretty blessed. It was in the first 5 years or so of my practice that I got really good mentorship around that. So
thank you.
Yeah.
We've been talking a little bit about burnout, and obviously that was really in the context of your practices that you do to try and protect yourself, and what's going on with other practitioners. But what about burnout more generally, perhaps in the people that you serve, the clients that you serve? Where are we at with that in society?
Well, everyone's, at least you're in England, so things are a little different, but everyone here is beyond burnt out. I mean, I live in a very progressive town in America. The people experiencing the least degree of burnout is people whose lives are built around their own meaning, the change they're creating in the world on a small scale, in a way that they can really relate to what they're doing. I think for people who are not working and are, more at the whim of society and what's happening, that's more challenging. I think for everyone, what's happening in society is really challenging. I think the politics of the day are morally draining, morally challenging, and that, I'm certainly seeing the last 10 months of greater and greater levels of despair and frustration, and it affecting everybody way more than I would ever expect. I don't know. It's just, I'd never thought society would be the place it's at either. So, but I guess as a remedy, I think it's about what can you do where you feel a change, however big or small, it doesn't matter. But you're in action, you're making change yourself, and you're not completely passive recipient of all the bad news that's been happening.
Thank you. It's been really, really interesting. And so what does the next chapter look like for you and Woodstock Healing Arts? What's on the cards for the next 6 to 12 months?
So at the center, as I mentioned, we're looking at this expansion, kind of crunching the numbers, see if it works. And then me as a practitioner, the two things that are like my forefront, like what I'm expanding into, one is writing and the other is teaching. So I'm teaching a zero balancing class this coming weekend here in Woodstock, and then hopefully plan to keep going with that every 2 or 3 courses a year. And then I've been writing and going to keep working away at the writing, seeing where that goes.
And are there any things that you're sort of actively saying no to protect your energy? Because we have been talking about burnout a lot, and it's very easy to get overcommitted with things. Is there anything you're kind of turning down?
I mean, clients. That's what I'm turning down these days, or just booking out further into the future. I mean, and then, there's so much that I've already kind of gotten used to saying no to that really take me out of my practice. Mm-hmm. So, I don't drink. I'm just, like pretty clean living, eat well, so all that stuff. Relationships are pretty healthy. I'm doing a lot of saying no to, like, no, I'm not going to come pick you up at school because you feel like coming home early. A lot of saying no to my kids. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, like, just the normal stuff. Normal saying no when I'm too busy to clients. Or if it's outside of my scope, or if it doesn't feel like someone I'm going to be the best fit for, I'm very, very happy to refer people out. So.
On that note, Ben, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really interesting hearing about you and your work at Woodstock Healing Arts, your insights on burnout, and some very good advice you've given about how you look after yourself, but how that could translate to how we can all look after ourselves, not just as practitioners, but people in society in general. So thank you so much. Really appreciate the conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.